Hello, hockey world. It's the draft day. Rah! As my Kermit the Frog hands. It's just me, and there's so much happening. So I've been calling people, and my phone might ring at any point. So I might just like open the floor for Randy in the chat room or Steve in the chat room to do some charades. I don't know, but let's get where we are. Okay, right now, here's where we are. Everybody on? Everyone aboard. So this whole thing between the picks from 1 through 6 is lunacy. Okay, and it's now being played. I want to tell you a story, a really good story, real quick about that happened long ago. And this is how the Flyers played it back then. This is an Ed Snyder thing, and the reason I'm telling you this is because the Flyers are playing an awesome similar game that I think, at least. So I might be wrong, but this is what it feels like because no one's talking, so we have to all conjecture, right? So here's what's going on. Years ago, the Flyers wanted when they made an offer sheet for Shea Weber, too much money, like crazy thing. Well, that was all brought on by the fact that both the Rangers and the Flyers were actually at the same time negotiating a trade to get Shea Weber from Nashville. And Ed Snyder found out that the Rangers had put a certain offer on the table, and Ed's like, that we'll never be able to match that. It's a great offer. So what I want you guys to do is make sure he's never a Ranger. So how do you make sure the guy's never a Ranger? You offer sheet him. The Flyers offer sheeted him, knowing Nashville would probably match. They brought Shea Weber in. They did this whole thing because and they wanted Shea Weber. If they got him, they got him. That's great. But the reality is that they kept him away from the Rangers because the second you offer sheet a guy, you can't trade him after you sign him, right? And the reality is that he was going to either be a Flyer or a Predator for a very long time. But the Rangers were not going to touch him. So now again, we have the Flyers and the Rangers in a battle to force. So I want to tell you, that's an old thing. I love that story. It's one of my favorite stories ever. And I think Ed was just a baller for doing that. The Rangers were pissed off. Anyway, all right, here we go. It's all about Hagens right now. Have you noticed this? Like Hagens, who we talked yesterday on this very show about how his stock has gone up and now gone back down again because people had overscouted him. Suddenly, everybody wants him. Everybody wants him, right? Suddenly, the Rangers are offering up Lafreniere to Utah for number 4. That apparently fell through, but it might return. We don't know. And let's say apparently because no one's talking really right now. No one has any idea what's going on except for what's being released into the public, which is interesting because remember, if you don't know a rumor, you got to know the motivation. That's my lesson for every rumor person out there right now. Okay, know who the person is giving the rumor, know who his sources are, or know what teams he's close with, and then know the motivation. You got the motivation, you're good. All right, so remember, the stuff that's coming out now is all coming out right before the draft, intriguingly so, and they're absolutely keeping it at like a very basic level, right? So here's what we know. The Flyers brought in a couple players last week to show around the facility. One of them, the only one that was released to the public that I heard at least, and I heard 3 of them, which I wasn't allowed to say. The only one I heard actually put out there by somebody else was James Hagens. The Flyers love Hagens, and everybody keeps saying the way it's working out, it looks like Hagens is going to fall to number 6. And he could be the best player in the draft. Like, we don't know. I mean, this time last year he was the best player in the draft, and this past World Juniors, I thought he was better than Ryan Leonard for USA. So anyway, Hagens is something, right? We'll find out what James, and now the Flyers have been setting everything up to be like, we want James Hagens, like, and now the fans, like in their chat room there, Mr. James in the chat room there says, I want Hagens and Flyers Orange, and the Flyers will be thrilled if they get Hagens and Flyers Orange, but being number 6 is hard because this is a franchise that never gets up in this close to the top in the draft, and they want to control more than they can. So what do? How do you control it? Well, the situation. How do you control what happens before you? You got to think about this now. So the Islanders now suddenly they trade Dobson, which is baffling to me because you would, if you're an Islanders fan, and it's really intriguing that the Islanders. I have ADHD, so anybody else with ADHD, if you need an ADHD interpreter, find one now. The Islanders have a history of doing like bad draft parties. I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but they've had like draft parties in the past where they traded all their picks away during the draft party, and everyone sat there and drank their beer and ate their long necks or whatever, long necks out on Long Island, right? So the Islanders don't want to put bad news out. So like I wrote earlier today, all these teams are holding back on announcing things right now because they want to announce the big, cool, exciting trade at their draft party, which makes sense. It's like that's just basic marketing, and that'll be exciting for everybody, right? But the Islanders put out the Dobson trade. Why? Because the Islanders fans aren't thrilled with that trade, and they shouldn't be. Honestly, it's 16 and 17. I mean, I know there's a player involved too, but at the end of the day, you just traded away a really good defenseman. Why? Because Dobson said he wanted to make $10 million there. I was told. Why did Dobson say that when he's not worth $10 million, you ask? I'm sorry, I'm doing a podcast myself, so I have to ask these questions to myself. So why would Dobson say that? Because Dobson doesn't want to be there. Like, he knows that if he puts a number out that the Islanders don't want to go, he's going to get traded. And it makes him look better than demanding a trade or what have you, or saying he's not going to sign there. He's just like throwing this out there, right? The Islanders don't want to lose him for nothing, so they got to make a play. So Dobson, who is right in his prime, thank you, Steve, is gone. And now the Islanders have the 16th and 17th picks in the first round. The Islanders, we all know, love Hagens. He's a Long Island kid. They're not going to take. The Islanders were planning on taking Hagens, but then suddenly, wow, we've got the first pick overall. We can't take Hagens. Schaefer's the first pick overall. Mies is better than. Is he? I mean, Hagens might be the best player overall. I mean, the Islanders can get him if they want him. But the reality is this: we don't know. So the Islanders pick up these two picks. Thanks, I'm 100% correct. I appreciate it, Randy. I love when people tell me I'm right. You know what? I'm going to give myself this trophy for this whole podcast because I really think I deserve it. It's our participation trophy for podcasting, which all us podcasters are sent. So anyway, here's the thing. Where was I? Okay, the draft picks. They now have the 15th and 16th picks overall. That's not enough to get to. If they're going to get Hagens, they got to get in front of the Flyers. The Predators aren't going to. Predators know what they're going to do. They're not going to probably draft Hagens. They might, and all this they'll probably end up drafting Hagens. But I don't think I think the Flyers have an idea what the Islanders are going to do because the Flyers want Hagens. Remember, that's what they've done. So the Islanders take the 15th and 16th, and now they're working on a trade with the Vancouver Canucks to get the 14th pick. So they would have 14, 15, and 16. Very Boston Bruins of them. Those three picks, and who are they giving up for their 14th pick? And why would they announce this before the draft party? They're giving up their best forward, Barzal, right? So Barzal and Dobson leave, and Schaefer and Hagens come in. Is that a good idea? I mean, if you're a team that didn't make the playoffs, you're not just replacing. It's not like they're replacing guys on the Florida Panthers. You're replacing guys on a team that wasn't good already on the Islanders. So I just don't understand this at all, this logic, right? So maybe it's not true. And that's what you have to remember. Motivation is like things that are put out there in rumors are weird. So I immediately think to myself, it's not true. All right, so I don't know who they Mike. I don't know who they give up to get. He's asking who Nashville to get with Nashville. I haven't heard anything yet about Nashville. This story excludes Nashville, but all the other teams, the other top six, will be mentioned at one point or another. I've already mentioned the Islanders and Flyers in Chicago. So who else is up there? Utah. I mentioned them. Who else is up there? Well, the second pick overall goes to the San Jose Sharks, who are being told that they have to take Misa. That's what I'm being basically. They're being put in a spot where they didn't plan on getting that high. I mean, they planned on getting the first pick overall. They wanted to take Schaefer. They also love Hagens. Misa's good, but now suddenly, for some reason, Misa's stock falls today. Like, it doesn't make any sense. His stock shouldn't go anywhere, but he hasn't done anything but probably sit around and eat Cheerios all day. But the reality is his stock has fallen, right? Okay, so there we are. So this is what. So say the Islanders get these three picks for a second, and they move Barzal, and they moved Dobson already. Okay, and they're sitting on 14, 15, 16, and they go to Chicago and say, hey, because Utah, this is the other thing, Utah wants players now. So Utah, they can't really afford to sit around and just take 3 draft picks in the first round that are mid-first round. That they need to get either somebody who can come in pretty soon and play, or get what they were talking about yesterday, like Alexis Lafreniere, a player who can play right now. So the Islanders are going to have a tough time making a move with Utah. They know that. So they go to the other two teams above them are San Jose, who that would take a lot because, if you get to San Jose, why aren't you got the first 2 picks of the draft if you're the Islanders? Then you probably feel the pressure. They have to take Misa. They want Hagens. So they can get Hagens at 3 because they know the first 2 picks are. Everybody seems to know those picks are, right? We think so. We've been told that. But again, remember motivation. Motivation is the key to hold this whole thing. So the Islanders are sitting there with those 3 picks, and the Flyers, just down the street, I talked to somebody over there. Now, again, they could be telling me things that are real. They could be telling me things that aren't real. We're that close to the draft that, I mean, I'm usually pretty good to decipher. I'm not talking to the person over there who I know would tell me the things that are real. And that's probably that might be on purpose. They might be having somebody else talk to me because they know that guy won't lie. And I'm not even lying, but he won't even play this. Okay. So understand that all the reporters out there, we constantly get people trying to play us. And some reporters go for it because they'll get scoops later on in GMs, but I'm not that way. I kind of have to be a different way because I don't have the clout that those guys have. I don't have a network paying fees to the NHL. So I've got to be the honest guy. And that's so people know that I'm not being played. And I tell them not to play me, or if they do play me, they're done with me. And that's how I play. So anyway, let's go. Let's get back to, is Barzal really being traded? Let's just say he is for a second. Okay, Randy? Because it doesn't even matter if he's traded, because right now the thought of Barzal being traded gives the Islanders the 14th pick. So all the other teams now say the Islanders, in their head, they're like, worst case scenario, the Islanders have 14, 15, and 16. What are we going to do? Now, the Flyers won Hagens, we all think, and then they probably would be happy with it. What happened? Oh, so Coyle just got moved to someplace. Anyway, we'll do that in a second. But there's more trades happening. It's going to be crazy, and most of the good ones are going to be announced tonight, because you're not going to announce the Barzal or the in front of a festive crowd. Dobson in front of a festive crowd. I wouldn't announce that trade. I wouldn't want to be there in that building. I've been to the island. So anyway, so let's just think now that everybody out there is thinking the Flyers and all the other teams are thinking, well, maybe the Islanders can make a deal with Chicago to get 14 and 15 and 16. Maybe but Chicago, meanwhile, is saying, no, we could sit here and we could get the guy who's the center behind Berard, or maybe somebody's better than him. So the Islanders, I'm not. Everybody else is ruling Hagens or Desnoyers. I think one of those two could end up in Chicago. Why wouldn't they do that? So, I mean, there are people who know why, but I don't know why. I'm literally asking why. All right. So I'm giving you positive news, James, as best I can, but there's no news. I'm trying to set you up to understand what is the machine work that's happening behind here. Okay. All right. Here we go. So this is so now the concept of the Islanders do have the 15 and 16, but the concept that they might have 14, 15, and 16, having given up Barzal to Vancouver, is now going to put pressure on the Flyers, because they think with 14, 15, and 16th, they can probably trade up to number 3 with Chicago. Maybe Utah wants players still. Maybe they could. And if Hagens falls to 5 with Nashville would definitely take that trade, right? Maybe? No? And the Islanders know that the Flyers are going to take Hagens at 6. That's what they think they know, because the Flyers brought him in. But they brought other people in too. They just didn't mention it. So the fact that we know that Hagens is in here, was this all a ploy? Like, do the Flyers really want Desnoyers? Which is very possible. We just don't know, right? Like, they might have just been steering people a different direction with Hagens. Now, it's dangerous for the fan base, because the Flyers fan base is already set on their Christmas present. They want Hagens. We got that, right? Like you mentioned in the chat room, same thing. But the reality is, yeah, very funny, Remy. We'll talk about McDavid in a second. But all right, the reality is, we don't know. So here we're sitting now. The Islanders are saying this, and suddenly word comes out, and the Islanders are also talking to San Jose, because why not get number 2 overall? Then we know who we can get. So suddenly word comes out that the Islanders and San Jose wants nothing to do with 14, 15, and 16 for number 2 overall. That's just ridiculous to them. They don't need that, right? So what do they say? They say, we need players that are going to be really good now. We need prospects that are really good now. And who has guys like that? And those draft picks, of course. But if you're going to get number 2, you're going to pay, right? Beware of the smokescreen. Exactly, Steve. All right, so the Islanders can't work out anything with San Jose, apparently. Like, that doesn't work. But Chicago, yes, maybe. Utah, probably not. Nashville, maybe. Who knows? So what do the Flyers do? The Flyers, it leaks out that the Flyers are talking to San Jose about the number 2 pick. So now suddenly we have, exactly, there you go. Who says, James, you're on top of this. The Flyers put it out there. They don't have to trade it. They just had to put it out there, because if the Islanders do all this work to get to 3 and still don't get Hagens, well, look at Mies. I mean, Mies, this would be a good draft pick. But at the end of the day, the Flyers don't want to make that trade to number 2. They're happy with Desnoyers or Hagens, apparently. I mean, or even Martin, right? So there's other people there too. So the reality is that what's crazy about the situation is The Flyers just sit back and wait now, and they wait to see if the Islanders actually pull this off. If the Islanders pull it off, then maybe the Flyers go number 2. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're just making the Islanders nervous. Like maybe they don't want Hagens. Like that's the reality of the situation, right? Maybe they don't really. Maybe they'd like if Hagens falls to them, but yeah, it does happen in the NFL a lot, Steve. You're right. Maybe they're okay if Hagens falls to them, but the idea that the Flyers are talking to San Jose has the Islanders freaked out completely. I talked to somebody over there, and it's just like they're absolutely nuts. And the reality is, no one knows if they're going to do that or not. But the Flyers have this reputation because, like what I said before, like what they did with Shea Weber. If you watch the beginning of the podcast, if you just tuned on. So what happens now? So the Flyers sit back and they say, we're happy with 6. If we get the 6, that's fine. We know we're going to get Hagens or Desharnais, probably at 6, and that's fine with us. But they're not acting that way. I think that's what they're doing. My knowing these guys pretty well, this is my theory. It's just a theory because no one's talking right now because no one would talk. It's too close to the draft and everything like that. And I think that's why I said again, stuff that we're hearing now that's coming out is part of a game. Like this is not, it's not real until it becomes real. Now the Dobson trade is real. That happened. But the idea of it, like, this is just a game. So like anything else that comes out, like Barzal for a 14th overall, is that a really good trade? I don't know. I mean, like that came out of nowhere, and it's not. But the Islanders do this to piss on, sorry, to screw with the Flyers because they say we can get to 2 maybe if we have 14, 15, and 16 instead of just 15 and 16. So the Flyers are like, go ahead, get to number 2. Then they take Hagens or Misa, or that puts the pressure on the Islanders because the Flyers are 6 is a nice spot to be in. I think they'd rather be in like 5 or 4, obviously, but there are teams that can make mistakes before them, and the Flyers can sit back and watch it happen, right? So here you go. So that's the story, kind of like going on behind the scenes. So meanwhile, there's other things happening around the NHL as well. Montreal, they have Dobson now. Like, what does that mean? And, the fact that, like I said, Dobson is making 8.5 in Montreal when he asked for 10 in New York makes you realize that, I don't know what the taxes are between Montreal and New York, but I know Montreal is often said to be the worst taxes in the NHL. That, the provincial tax up there is insane, but New York taxes are no picnic. So I'm not sure, but I think the Islanders would have paid Dobson 8.5 or 8, but we don't know. We have no idea, right? It's not 9.5, it's 8.5. Isn't it? I have that right for Dobson. I think I have that right. Okay. It's 9.5, really? All right. Well, then that's still kind of crazy. Then I'm questioning Montreal a little bit, but we won't get it. Anyway, whatever they're paying him, right? I got a text that it was 8.5, and I'm really sorry about that. If it's 9.5, great. Good on. I mean, then the Islanders, you can start justifying this a little bit, but again, they haven't been in the playoffs in a while, and that Islanders fan base is rabid. And the fact that they're sitting there, and we'll have someone in the chat room please check to me. It's someone saying it's 9. I think it's 8.5. I really do. But like whatever it is, it gets better, of course, for the Islanders the higher it goes. But at the end of the day, does that really matter? You're not in the playoffs. To me, why you want the first round pick is to draft Schaefer to play with Dobson. Like that's the idea of getting better. Like they're not a team that's replacing. They're not like a Stanley Cup champion that's replacing an old guy. They're not there yet. They need to have both of them. They need to have both. In my opinion, Dobson and Schaefer is what made them dangerous. So trading Dobson, now they put themselves in the corner. They have to take Schaefer, right? We're going to do anyway. But there's some questions whether Schaefer, Hagens, or Misa are the best in the draft, or Desharnais. All these guys are considered really good, right? He's indeed a 9.5. Thank you, Zach, Hockey Buzz guy. He's indeed a 9.5 AAV. That is nuts and fine. Still, though, the Islanders, yeah, they're paying less money, but do the fans care about that? I mean, they made Montreal pay more money. Do the fans care about that in the Island? I mean, I know Islanders fans, and they want to be in the playoffs, and the reality is that this put them back. And now if they have to trade Barzal to get to Hagens, they really are just replacing Barzal with Hagens. What's the point? Like, you need more than just one superstar forward and one superstar defenseman. All right, so that's the deal, right? I mean, Elliot Friedman would know, so Randy, I buy it. Okay. So it just gets So basically, what I'm trying, so you can see the picture I'm painting right now, and this happens all the time. And at the end of the day, so this why I'm doing this isn't talking, because I can barely talk it through. Whether even like writing it would just take me forever. So this kind of stuff does happen at drafts usually, and then usually nothing happens at all. Like there's still like an 85% chance, in my opinion, that all 6 top picks will go in order and no one will make a trade. But why are there more things happening now, and why is it more confusing to teams? And this is why. If I'm at an event, like I've gone to many drafts where the way it's set up is you've been to a hockey arena, so the draft is set up where at one end of the hockey arena is a stage where, Bettman gets booed and all that stuff is done down there. At the other end of the hockey arena, there's like high school type bleachers where the media sits, but they have tables in front of us. But yeah, so we're opposite the stage. And in the middle is where you get all the tables with all the people that are, doing the draft, and every team has its own round table. So that's all great. So if we were in that normal situation now, instead of in everybody's own private rooms in their cities, then the Flyers and Islanders could just go over to each other and talk to each other, and it would be harder for the Flyers to play this game or the Islanders to play this game if they're playing a game, because they might be playing a game just as easily. So whoever's playing this game would have to look at the other guy, right? But now everybody's private in their own places, and believe it or not, that does make a difference. These guys have to work with each other. Like these GMs, they're really working for one big company, and even though we always talk about they work for their own teams, they do have to deal with each other. And GMs who don't deal well with each other, like the Vegas GM, who isn't liked very much by anybody, they tend to, at the end of the day, have problems. And you see that Vegas has had to move all of its first round draft picks to make anything happen, right? So what is this piece here? I'm trying to read. My eyes are going blurry. Yes, thank you. All right. Right, groundwork, and there's a lot of ground. At the draft, it's uncomfortable for everybody because people know I'm a rumor person. So I'm sitting there in like one of the rows, and I've got like Greg Wyszynski next to me or whatever, and Dob, Brian Dobb or whatever, and we're all casual, we're friendly. I don't work with them. We're whatever. So, but I get a call, and they know that I'm a rumor person. So the second I get a call at my station there, and I've got like one person right next to me, another person right next to me there, I go into this weird stealth mode because they look to see I can see them looking at my phone to see who's calling me, right? So I pick up the phone and I get up and I walk away because I want to go someplace quiet to talk. And then sometimes I get called up to the literal, like there's a little fence between the fence here that goes between where the people sit in the tables and where the bleachers are for the media, right? People go right up to that fence and call over like, hey, and they pick up one of the owners or somebody, and they'll walk up to the fence and you'll see LeBron or Elliot or anybody of these people talking, and I've done this too, talking to somebody directly, and usually the conversations are not about rumors. They're just like, hey, what's going on? They grew up in the same town in Canada or whatever, but everybody's looking at it and everybody's like, Elliot Friedman just talked to let's say Bill Zito. So he's just talking to Bill Zito. So then all of a sudden in the press box, everyone's like, huh, is there a trade coming up with Zito? When it might be, but in all likelihood, they wouldn't have gotten together in front of everybody if there was. So here we are, right? What does David Letterman mean, dude? That's pretty funny, though. I'm a huge Letterman fan. Anyway, so they don't know. Yeah, Luongo. That's a good one. Luongo drafted, right? Right. Similar to the trading Luongo drafting DiPietro. That's exactly it, Steve. Now, Luongo, he works for the Panthers, so he might be like a guy wandering around the floor or something like that, and somebody grabs him and they're like, oh, so suddenly, and you've all seen it, like when they talk about the NHL Network, when two GMs like Lou Lamoriello and Danny Briere are talking face to face with each other, they might be talking about, how was your steak last night? But at the end of the day, it's suddenly rumor, right? So you have to be careful about this. And that's my experience of 20 years really has taught me what not to do more than it has taught me what to do. And it's taught me what is not going to happen in rumors more than it's taught me what will. So, all right, the top 10 who's being traded list. Exactly, right? Not unlike perhaps somebody who invented the rumor chart a long time ago, where other sites have something similar to that now, but that's not patentable. That's okay. So anyway, we are looking at a situation right now where the Flyers and Islanders are in a standoff, and the Islanders are more nervous now because they've already made a commitment. They've already traded Dobson. They already have the 15th and 16th pick, and if they can get the 14th pick, maybe the Blackhawks are saying, "Come talk to us." Then you would assume that if they make that trade for Barzal, they know that they can trade with the Blackhawks. That's my feeling. And Pasternak's not going to Florida. We'll talk about. I wrote about that today, but that one just killed me. I mean, it's we'll talk about that in a second. But if there are any other questions, throw it over in the chat room over there on the YouTube channel. You can see it right there, and we'll or StreamYard I think is where you can see it. I'm not sure, but anyway, the let me take a drink for a second. I'm going on like fumes. I've barely slept, but I'm fired up because this is what I live for. This kind of stuff is so exciting. So here we go. So now the Islanders have committed in. Now the Islanders have played a hand in because of this 14-15. The Flyers are just saying, "Hey, maybe we'll trade to number 2." And then the Islanders are like, "Oh no, we can't do that because then they're going to draft Hagens." Maybe the Flyers aren't even thinking about Hagens, but they have everybody thinking that they are. So to me, I'll get to the wing stuff in a second. I just tried Kevin to come on. I don't know if he's going to be able to, but if he can come on, he's way more connected than I am over there. But I'll try. I know I appreciate you guys coming on here. Okay, yeah. So I'll answer that question, Michael. So Michael Jafar says, any early opinion on the decentralized draft? I don't mind it. I think it's pretty. I think if we're going to get this kind of fun stuff happening, where these teams are able to be freer about floating rumors out there and freer about things, I think it's going to be more fun. Bettman hates it. That. You've heard that, right? So, and Bettman, believe it or not, for all of his I'm a huge Gary Bettman fan. People boo him all the time, but I think look at where the NHL is now. The best way I can say it is this: when the lockout happened, when we missed the season, when I kind of started going here. Do you remember what the actual amount of revenue the league was making, the annual revenue? When we came back, it was $1.5 billion for the whole league. That was the profit that the team were making. That was hockey related revenue that was being worked in the salary cap. $1.5 billion. Now it's over $3.5 billion now, and that's in 20 years. And guess what? The expansion fee for these teams coming in, if they come into Houston or Quebec or Atlanta or wherever else, what the expansion fee is rumored to be? $1.5 billion for one team to buy in. So that's where the revenue for the entire league was 20 years ago. I mean, yeah, exactly. He did his job. The reality is you might not like him as a person. You might think that, but there's really nothing not to like about a person. And so much of that, I think, is evil anti-Semitism too, because he gets a lot of that. But he's a good guy. I've had lunch with him 2 or 3 times. He's a really good guy. He loves the sport. When you go into his office, there's a big Lego Stanley Cup there on one side, which is really cool. You can't get it. I guess it was made for him. And then on the other side, there's three screens there. And I mentioned this before, but on podcast, but you wonder what those 3 screens are on the other side. Actually, if you're sitting back on the stage, the 3 screens over here and the Stanley Cup's back there. If you're sitting on his desk, the 3 screens, what he's watching, I thought he'd be watching highlights or whatever, or something like that. He's watching the NBA network, the NFL network, and the MLB network, because that is his competition. When you ask him, he's like, what he's like, I'm a competitive guy. What are you competitive with? I'm competitive with those guys. We got to make sure that we're as good or better than those guys. And I respected that a ton. I'm like, that's what you want for that job. That's what you want. That's why he was hired. That's why these rich guys hired him. Thomas, will the New York Rangers trade K'Andre Miller? It's definitely in the cards that they probably will. You saw it coming last year even, right? So it was one of these things that I haven't really heard a rumor about yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's I think we're going to hear, and we're going to hear rumors about draft picks the next couple days. There will be some players that are traded, Utah and Seattle, especially a little bit Chicago, maybe, are trying to get players that can help them now. So there will be some players like that, like K'Andre Miller, that are moved because they can help now. I like him too. I agree. I agree. He's there. He's a good defenseman. He's way underrated. He does make mistakes. I'll get into McDavid for a second because there's just a fun thing to talk about there, and it's just I love my reaction. The reaction I've gotten since I wrote about McDavid to the LA Kings is an E4. Anyway, I'll tell you why. Why not? Because I got to leave. I still have a little bit of time before I have to leave to go to the Flyers party draft thing over there, which I'm going to as media. So anyway. All right, so let's move on. So let's see what else we have. So I'm trying to think. So like I said, the draft parties themselves are dictating a little bit of what's happening now. Like that's dictating all the rumors being out there because rumors like that can be squashed really easily when everybody's in the same place. It's hard to play another team when you're in the same place as them. Because a lot of this stuff right now is just like emotional manipulation. The Flyers can say they're going to trade for number 2 without doing anything, and it doesn't cost them anything. But to say that, but they might actually end up controlling their destiny of who they end up drafting by saying that, by just threatening that, or even letting people think that it's possible. I mean, because the Flyers aren't threatening the Islanders, not saying we're going to get number 2. Okay, 1 second. I got another text from somebody. Hold on, let me just see what this is. Right, this is what you guys were talking about before. Charlie Coyle being traded from Colorado to Columbus. Columbus desperately needed a center, so I'm happy for them. I got a good feeling for Columbus. That's a great city to go to, like to visit. It's a college town, of course. It's Ohio State's home, but the organization is so cool. Like they've always been nice. That's where I met Bill Zito when he was in this GM. Well, I actually met him as an agent, but he used to be there. There's just nice people over there for sure. Can you explain what your E-scale is? Yes, I can. Thanks, John. All right, so I set up the E-scale for purposes like what we're talking about today. Like I would put the Barzal thing at an E1. Okay, it's not necessarily that it's a better rumor. So, in order to report about rumors on a regular basis and just throw rumors out there, I wanted to have something that would enable you guys to know a little bit behind the scenes that I can't talk about, but at the same time, understand that there are differences to level of how likely this is to happen. And to me, it's not just that an E1 is more likely to happen or less likely to happen than an E4, because it doesn't have anything. It has more to do with who I heard it from. So the concept is this: if let's just say McDavid is being traded to the Kings, okay, and I hear that from a guy in Chicago who's a legitimate hockey guy in Chicago, like maybe he works with that team. The Habs and Islanders are working on another deal apparently right now. So what's that going to be? Anyway, I have all my people texting me, and I've got interns over there. We're doing everything we can, so I'll let you know if anything happens. What was I talking about, guys? Oh, the E-scale. So okay. So if I hear from a guy in Chicago that McDavid's going to be traded to LA, that's a guy who's not related to the deal, like isn't in LA, isn't in Edmonton, isn't somebody who's friends with McDavid or what have you. That gets an E1 because it's one person who told me about the deal who is legitimately a source in hockey, but isn't connected directly to anybody involved. E2 is 2 or more of those kind of people. Like, so now with some Chicago, Philly, somebody at the NHL office, somebody in Boca Raton or whatever. The people are telling me it could be 4 or 5 people that they're hearing in the NHL that McDavid is going to get traded to LA. And this is just an example again, like I'm saying. So that's an E2. An E3 is one person who's connected to the deal. Okay. So that's like either somebody who knows McDavid, somebody at Edmonton, somebody at LA. So an E3 is more powerful than an E2 or an E1, even though it might only be one person. But that person would know what's going on in this situation. So therefore, you can trust the rumor a little bit better because they are absolutely in that world. Because what does happen in rumors and why I made E2 like 2 or more is because when a rumor gets out in the hockey world, people DMs talk to each other and it starts to become real, even though it's not. So like 15 people now know this rumor, but none of them are connected to the deal. So does that make sense? So like that isn't more powerful just because more people know about it. So 3 is more powerful. E4 is 2 or more people who are E3s, like 2 or more people connected to the deal. So that's why E4 is like, now you're talking something. Usually it's two or three. There's usually not like more than three people that I would get like a rumor that was that strong from at the same time. Like because an E4 is close to getting done. It's not going to get done. It's still just a rumor. But you're finding out basically how I'm getting the rumor. That's the easiest way to say it. You're finding out where the rumor is coming from, and that enables you to make a better decision on whether or not you think the rumor is legitimate or not. Because they're all just rumors. I mean, even in E4, 80% of the time won't happen. But it is coming from people who know it could happen, and that's the difference. That was the best way I could think of to describe rumors to the public without getting into anything that would put my sources at risk. Make sense? All right. Oh, that's cool. Since the COVID, I appreciate that, Blaze. Thanks, man. Um, do I know what the ads got for Coil? Oh, Montreal's shopping. No, I don't do shopping. Okay, that's another thing that you've noticed I don't do because players don't like that. I got to find out who this player in Montreal, who else might want him. Because I'll write a rumor about like the Islanders want this guy, but I won't root that they're shopping the Montreal shopping somebody because those are never true, and it just ends up in bad. And the players won't trust me if I say that. The players, like there's a player in Montreal who this guy's been around for a long time, and I know him and I like him, and he's a friend of mine. I'm not going to sit there and say that he's being shopped, but because teams don't just shop people. That's not like it's very rare that they put a memo out. Like Drury did one time, but it's very rare they put a memo out that says somebody's available. Okay. Now most of the Hoggies seem to originate from Elliot Freeman's thoughts. Elliot's amazing. Obviously, he knows everybody. He works really hard to get his stuff together. He has people that work for him though as well, like I do too, because honestly, like there's 32 teams and there's a lot of stuff going on at the same time. I've got my teams that I'm closely connected to. He's got his teams he's closely connected to. Pierre LeBrun. Like I said today, Kevin Weeks is really becoming one of the best insiders for breaking trades. Breaking a deal is an E5. So that's what an E5 is. An E5 is when at least I think that I'm breaking a trade. It could be out someplace else on the internet with Twitter. I don't know, but I haven't seen it anywhere. And I was just talking to someone on the phone who told me it happened. So that deal's done. So that's an E5. And sometimes I have to take the E5 off because someone said, "Oh, a guy 30 seconds before you." Honestly, it's not something I can sit and worry about. Like before Twitter, I was breaking a lot more trades because Twitter didn't exist, and now that Twitter exists, a friend of a guy can put out there, that so and so was traded, or a team can report it. Because also the other thing about that's changed in my 20 years is now teams have their own, reporters working for them, and that's always a funny thing because like, can a reporter working for a team get a scoop? And I've argued with them and said no, you cannot call what you get a scoop when you work for the team and the team gives it to you. That is what you're writing. That is an article, but that article is nothing more than a press release. That's the difference with a press release and a scoop. A press release is a team says that they're signing Claude Giroux. A scoop is I heard the team's going to sign Claude Giroux from someplace, but I don't work for the team, so I don't know. That makes sense. I mean, it's just one of these things. Like it's stupid stuff. Remember when Frank broke every pick? Yeah, I mean Frank listen, Frank works really hard too. Obviously worked for TSN. I'm not a big, he and I are not close. I gave him his first job. Like his first job in hockey, he was covering the World Juniors. He was going to the World Juniors to cover it a long time ago. And I said, and he just texted me because he was in the Flyers press box too. And he said, "Hey, can I write the World Juniors for you?" And I'm like, "Sure." It was over Christmas time. I was down in Florida with my family. So yeah, but Frank's okay. Like he's okay. He's a little in the agents' pockets, and there's like, it kind of wigs me out because agents are even more conniving than GMs, so you have to be careful. But when he broke everything, that was because he knew all the agents of all the players, and he's written enough about those players over time that okay, 2 picks, not a first round draft pick, and a prospect for Coyle. So 2 picks that aren't first picks and a prospect for Coyle. Anyway, so that makes sense. So like I like Frank a lot, but he's also like Kevin Allen used to be the president of the Professional Hockey Writers Association. Now it's Frank Saravelli. That's a big difference to me. Like as far as like, I'm not saying anything else about that. Okay, I like him. I mean, I like him, and he did have all those rumors. But he's not going to get those rumors unless he's paid for them another way. Does that make sense? People don't just give you things. Agents become GMs a lot. It's true. I mean, Bill Zito is the best example, probably, right? Currently we have now Jim Noah is a player agent too, I think. They do become agents because agents are smart. That they're just smart, and that's how I see it. So I mean, like I wrote an article about Bill Zito years ago when he was just an agent and representing Tim Thomas and Kimo Timonen and John Madden and Brian Rafalski, and Anthony Niemi, a couple other guys. But I talked to him for years as an agent, like on the up and up. He was always honest with me about things, which I really appreciated. I actually ended up going to his wedding. We were that good of friends. But I also wrote an article years ago that this guy is the smartest hockey guy I've ever met. Like, and people used to just say, "Oh, you're a friend of his." I'm like, no, he's going to be the next great GM. I've talked to a lot of people in hockey, and Zito is the smartest one I've ever talked to, and he still is to this day. So I wrote an article, and then he got the assistant job in Columbus, and which is fine, But then he interviewed for a bunch of jobs, including the Flyers job. And the Flyers turned Bill Zito away. That's for sure true, because they already had hired Fletcher. So don't think about that. Forget I said that, because Flyers fans won't settle well. But yeah, he ended up, calling me when he got the Florida job. It was amazing. I was really happy for him. And then look what he's done. Like, this is what he is. Like, he is. I'm not surprised at all by this. I mean, I introduced a lot of the insiders that you guys think are insiders now, or who are insiders, like Jeff Merrick and other people like that. I introduced Bill Zito to them. Like, that's how they met him. So, because I knew that was the horse I wanted to back. The second I started talking to him, I'm like, that's a guy who's honest and he's great. All right, what else do you have? Pierre Lacroix. Right, Pierre Lacroix was an agent, exactly. Pat Brisson was offered the agent job in Montreal, but turned it down because there's more money in agents. That's another thing I respect about Zito. He made his salary would pay him like 10% of what it was to become a GM versus the money he was making off the players as an agent. But he wanted to win a Stanley Cup. He had the competitive thing in him. He played hockey. He played hockey at Yale. He was a college hockey player, pretty good one. And he wanted to win a Stanley Cup. And as an agent, he saw his players win a Stanley Cup. I was there. I went out with Tim Thomas and him after they won the Stanley Cup. The Bruins won the Stanley Cup. But yeah, he just wanted to win the Stanley Cup, right? So what else do we have in the chat room there? Let me talk a little bit about Gavrikov's a good one. I think Gavrikov's. This is a perfect transition. Thank you for helping me transition my website by myself here. I'm trying to do these podcasts by myself. If you like these kind of things, let me know. I'll do more by myself. But I like having people to bounce things off of. But I don't mind bouncing things off the chat room. It's kind of fun. Brian Burke was absolutely an agent. Yes, he was. Yeah. So let's get back to Gavrikov. Gavrikov. I say it like I spell it. Gavrikov. Gavrikov. Really good defenseman from Columbus. Went to LA, was their best defenseman, I thought, in many occasions. Never been a concept. I thought for a second that he was going to be extended in LA. It's really strange. Like, they kept saying he's not coming back. Why would they let Gavrikov go? Well, they have to clear out salary. Maybe they're going after Mitch Marner, right? That's the popular. Mitch Marner really wants to play in Vegas. That's where he wants to play. Don't bring up Wade Redden, man. He really wants to play in Vegas, and he's extended that to Anaheim and Calgary. But the two teams he's said he wants to play in Vegas. Players when they're doing negotiations, if they're smart, they will very rarely say when they're a UFA, I want to play in Vegas, because then Vegas can say, well, you want to play here, so we're not going to pay any. We don't have to pay anything more, right? So he had to put LA in there too, from what I understood, and then Anaheim and Calgary. This all just helps him drive up the price at Vegas. But Vegas might be like, no, it's enough of that. We can't do that. And Vegas is not going to trade Thomas Hertl. Like, people were talking about that last week, and it sounds like they're not going to trade him. So that's another cap space. So Vegas might not have money to do this. I mean, Pietrangelo could go on LTIR, of course. Nobody talks about that, and that's possible, of course. But it's still not enough money. Like, Marner's going to make more than Pietrangelo making right now, right? You guys understand that, right? So that's true. So what is LA clearing cap space for? I heard during the second round of the playoffs from a really good source who actually is close to both LA and Edmonton, and has been close to them because he was actually involved in the Gretzky trade. So he's been around for a long time, and he's one of the people I really trust. And he told me that there's no question, and he told me this in the second round, that you can write it down now that it's an E5, McDavid is going to be traded to the LA Kings after the season. And I said, okay, that's kind of crazy. And he said, but you can't write it until they're done. Promise me you won't write it until Edmonton's eliminated. I'm like, sure. Sitting on a pretty big trade there. I said, but no, I totally get it. And you have to respect people when they say that to you, because you're not going to get rumors like that if they don't trust you, right? So, yeah. So I sat on it and sat on it and sat on it. I hinted at it in some blogs. I'm like, I hear Edmonton's going to be making a big move after this is all done. I said things about LA. LA's got, going big game hunting, and it's not just Marner. I'd said those things to try to like secretly put it out there, but I couldn't put it out there until the day after Edmonton was eliminated, which I did. McDavid's not happy, in Edmonton. That's the reality, right? So, but he's a good guy. Like, he's a solid guy. He's a solid teammate, and he's not going to come out and say he's unhappy, but he's also not going to sign a deal unless there's significant changes there. And I think I think that he's already gone past the point. Like, I think that he doesn't love the coach there. I mean, I'm not saying he's not going to say these things again. He's a quality guy. I hear from friends. I hear from people around the team. Evan Bouchard, who's going to be signed for a major thing this year, is problematic as well. Like, he's like, not that he's a bad person. It's just that, I mean, if you follow the Edmonton Oilers, you know that there's a Jekyll and Hyde part of Bouchard's game, right? So that he can kill you on a power play, but he can also make terrible plays. And he did at the same time make terrible plays all throughout the playoffs. Like, and a couple times where you actually saw McDavid yelling at him on the ice, like, why didn't you tell me that guy was there? Remember one of those situations? So McDavid wasn't going to ever leave Edmonton until he felt like he did Canada right. Like he's got that same thing that Gretzky and Crosby had, the best players in the world have. McKinnon had it to a degree as well, but McKinnon's kind of slipped by it a little bit. But McDavid wanted to win for Canada. He wanted to win a Stanley Cup for Canada in a Canadian team. And I think that was basically, when people talk to him, are you going to get traded? He's like, no, I'm not going anywhere until I win for Canada, basically, right? So that's not just necessarily just Edmonton, but it's win for Canada. So that seemed to change from people I've talked to after the Four Nations thing, where Four Nations was like, okay, now he scored the golden goal in the Four Nations tournament. He won for Canada, right? But does he want to spend the rest of his career on a team that hasn't been able to find a really solid number one goalie while he's been there? Has been through several coaches. A team he has to play with Draisaitl on to really make the team offensively strong enough, and he doesn't. I mean, he loves playing with Draisaitl, but it really weakens the other three lines, right? So Edmonton, and then Edmonton went and got rid of, and those two players offer sheets to St. Louis. That was nuts. There were two really good players who were coming through the system. So you can't think a star like McDavid, who really does care a lot about his legacy, which all players should, but superstars, humble ones, especially like McDavid, tend to think about their legacy a lot. So he doesn't want to disappoint anybody. He doesn't want to upset anybody. It's not going to be something that's going to come out and say, like, it's going to come out in the middle of the night one night. And you're going to hear, oh, did you hear McDavid? Like we all who were alive heard about Gretzky's trade. It came out of nowhere. I just happened to hear about it earlier. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen again. Just because this one guy who's been involved with all these things says 100% that you can write it down, that's, a little bit of that showboating to me. I don't trust people sometimes who tell me 100% because everything can fall apart. But I do trust this guy in general. And the more people I talk to about it after that, before I wrote about it, were telling me these kind of things I'm kind of telling you about McDavid. Like, that, his wife obviously is very important to him. And we heard that suddenly, was weird because she's lonely and she wrote that thing. I felt for the girl. I mean, it's like the woman, she's a really nice person. From everything I've heard, she's like one of the most wonderful people out there. And it has got to be hard to be stuck up in Edmonton sometimes. I mean, she's got her own businesses and stuff like that. So would she have more friends in LA? I'm sure she does, or will, or could. So to me, that's, Cups are a team thing, but they're not, Steve, at the same time. Like, Canadians tend to go for the last Canadian team that's alive, and they tend to become fans. Like, there were a lot of Leaf fans and everything being Edmonton fans at the end there, because I want to see Canada win another cup. I mean, I'm, I knew Florida was going to win it, and I've got friends in Florida, but I still wouldn't mind the Leafs beating Florida. I wouldn't mind Canada winning a Stanley Cup at all, because I talk to you guys all the time and I see like how much you're hurting from this. But remember, my team didn't. Last time my team won was 1975. So I'm a Flyers fan, so I can relate to that a little bit. And my first memory was being 5 years old at their second Stanley Cup parade. That's one of my first memories. So will this happen with me? I don't know, but there's enough out there where if a couple things turn a couple ways, the bridge has already been building. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. The bridge has already been building, and you could see something. You could see it wouldn't take a lot. Now, what would they get? Somebody asked in the chat room. What would LA have to give up? Obviously, a boatload of things. And it doesn't matter if they're the only team negotiating. It's like one of those things. Oh, well, they should be able to get it for less because that's the only place he wants to go. No, that's not going to matter. It's just, I mean, whatever they give up won't be enough. We know that, right? Like they're not going to be able to give up anything significant because their best players, even if they gave up their two best players or whatever, it's not going to be enough. Like I think Kempe would be involved. I think that he would be a part of that deal, and he's a pretty good player. This, by the way, is also, and I think this isn't out there, but if it's not, I'll break it here, that this is Kopitar's last year. Like this is it for Kopitar. This is his last time around the circle, right? So for Kopitar to be in going to his last year, this is a perfect time for them to bring in a McDavid and try to win another cup for him. Hey, K-Tom. Yeah, have you missed something big? No, I mean, I've really just been talking about the stupid things that are going on right now with all these people talking, and it's gotten a lot quieter in the last little bit. Now, a lot of these parties start, like I'm supposed to be I'm supposed to be there in exactly 1 hour from now. The Flyers were nice enough to put their party basically in my town, so I only live like 5 miles away from it. So I'll be leaving here, taking a shower, and heading over there. But sorry I didn't shower for the podcast. It was an emergency podcast. It's the first time we've ever had an emergency podcast, All right, my eyes are bad. Sorry, Flames. All right, Randy, you're so negative. Don't say that. The Flames are on there. Randy says the Flames are not going to win the cup anytime soon. We've seen this happen before. Florida, 2 years before Florida won the cup, people were saying worse things about the Panthers. Things can change, I mean, the one thing the Flames have going for them, which I really do love, is that as Dustin Wolf, he's a great ass goalie, and he's going to be. If you have a great goalie, you can build from there. Like the Panthers had Bobrovsky, you can build from there. Flyers don't have a goalie. That's hard to build from there. Like that's something that you need to have. Okay. Oh, let's talk about Pastrnak for a second. Oh my gosh. It's partially that it's the time of year. It's just right now that there's so many rumors out there is one thing, but the two big stories that break on Pastrnak were so funny. So the one is a Czech report says that Pastrnak is willing to be a great guy and waive his no trade clause and go play for the Florida Panthers, who, by the way, just won 2 Stanley Cups, and have his friend Brad on it. So to me, that's like is that a story? I mean, could I interview people out there and say, hey, Travis Konechny, would you be willing to be a great guy and waive your no trade clause and go play for the Florida Panthers, who just won 2 Stanley Cups? I mean, it's not really a story, right? And Pastrnak makes a ton of money. We know that, right? So Florida's in trouble. So why does it come out now? Like, why is suddenly it coming out now? Like, why is that? So think about it for a second. The money is the money. Florida it's all but done. The Bennett's good, right? They're not going to announce it now, which is fine. What's his name? Lou Lamoriello never announced trades, never announced signings until July 1st, no matter what. So the idea is, they could. It gave Lou into it. Lou held to that principle because he felt it gave him more power when talking to other teams about trades if they didn't know what he was doing with all those other players, right? So Bennett could be done for all we know, and I've never been told this because no one's talking to you when we get this close, even friends, but I haven't been told anything about Bennett yet. But I feel like They were close during the season at one point. I feel like they're going to get it done. I feel like he wants to stay there, and he realizes that he is in the best position he could possibly be in Florida. Like Bennett would be great signing someplace else, but he's not going to be any better than he's going to be in Florida because he's just in the perfect spot. He's on the second line. He doesn't have people keying on him. Anyway, so Marchand is a surprise, right? Because he just loved it there. They loved him, and he went in there and basically made himself, like when they say you go into a new job, you should make yourself, indispensable. That's kind of what Marchand did. Like Marchand went in there and made himself indispensable in Florida. He became like a big brother to everybody. He's like a 40-year-old guy who acts like a 20-year-old guy, and he's just completely, they loved him. And how could you not love him? It's like the reality was he was, and they can do a contract with him that's like bonus loaded, like the one we just saw with Jamie Benn or something. Like it'll be more years than that. Ben was a 1-year deal, but it can be like bonus loaded with Marchand, so they can get away with some cap trickery there. And if there is any trickery they can get away with, Zito will figure it out, right? So, but then we come to Ekblad, right? And Ekblad, since they, and again, I even though I have sources in this team, I don't know these things for facts, so I'm just throwing out my guesses. They might not tell me now. They might not tell me ever. I never know. So, to me, okay, yeah, I know Ekblad has the same agent as Marner, but that's really not. Oh, Bennett's agent. Okay, Bennett is the same one. I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about Ekblad. Anyway, on Stanley Cup night, when the Stanley Cup was raised by the Florida Panthers, I was watching the Hockey Night in Canada feed. But if you watch the U.S. feed, apparently Bill Zito was on there, and he said that he believed he would be able to sign those three. And he was excited. Of course, he just won Stanley Cup. So people were saying, well, maybe he's just fired up in the moment. Zito doesn't talk like that. Zito is fired up, but he also is smart. Him saying that actually, in a way, shifted the pressure to Ekblad's camp, because Zito, the general manager, everybody loves now. And I'm not saying that he did it like a maliciously thing, but he did do that. The reality of that is I did put the pressure on Ekblad's camp, because now all the Florida fans are like, oh, yeah, Bennett's going to take class, blah, blah, blah. So Ekblad's camp is kind of stuck, right? And they're negotiating with him, and I didn't think from the second that they got Seth Jones there that I thought Ekblad would be probably moving on. Like that's what I felt like, because Seth Jones is a version of Ekblad. He's probably not as good all around, but he's got other strengths to it. Ekblad gets hurt a lot more than Seth Jones does, so maybe that's something. So there's negotiation going on with Ekblad to get that done, and my feeling is that they'll get it done. So, but if they don't get it done, that becomes like $9 million, and who likes money? Pasternak. So there you have like the idea of that's being put together just like that, right? So it's been logically being connected together. The Czech reporter probably went to him and he said, "Yeah, sure, I'd love to play for Florida." It wasn't like he got the scoop that he wants to go play for Florida, because he did, but anybody on the street could have asked Pasternak, "Will you play for Florida?" He would have said yes, like just like anyone would ask almost any NHL player, and they would probably say yes. So if that makes sense. There's a possibility, but you say Pasternak to New Jersey, Steve. New Jersey is, I feel bad for Jersey because they always are involved. I think they were going after Marchand too. They're always involved with these things, and they tend to be used so much by teams. And they don't get they went after Stamkos and Marchand, so turned out to be not bad that they didn't get him, I guess. But so yeah, don't be surprised if New Jersey to Pasternak shows up, or Pasternak to New Jersey shows up, because that's what agents do. They'll put that out there. Why play this? Sorry, my eyes are so terrible. Sorry, let me see what you're doing. Gosh, I wish I could make this bigger. Sorry. Why play the season? Oh, you're saying, so if they get Pasternak, yeah. Already, I think that they're stacked. I think Florida's already. They've just done it the right way. They built it right. They have people who want to stay there. I wasn't a huge Paul Maurice fan, honestly. Before that happened, I was not in favor of of him hiring that guy. But Paul Maurice, because I knew some people in Winnipeg who said that he was a problem, but he's fit perfectly with what they're doing there, and he's just makes it really well, really good. I'm out on Don Waddell. Why are you out on Don Waddell? Yeah. I mean, Nate Schmidt. Remember, he was a pretty big factor in Vegas going to the original Cup final, and then he went to someplace else. I know that Columbus tried to get him for a bit, but then they didn't get him, and he went to Washington or what have you. He's played for $875,000 this year. Like his contract was $875,000 this year in Florida. He was like somebody I considered like a definite top two defenseman, and top two defensemen usually get at least five, right? But he was right; he did the right thing. Jonathan Villeneuve. Any news on the Flyers? Well, I'm going to go there soon. We'll see what happens. But yeah, Bowen Byram. One of two things, in my opinion, based on what's happened this week and based on who I've talked to. He talked to them and he said that in the next contract, his agent talked to the Flyers and they just said he wanted more money than they were willing to pay. That it possibly fell apart like that. I don't know. Again, some people are telling me that. Some people are telling me other things. But I could see that happening if he wants a really big number. Because why would you trade Bo Byron? He's a good defenseman, and I mean, obviously he's on a team in Buffalo that has three top overall defensemen playing for them, at least two, right? So the other thing with Bowen Byron is it's done, and we're going to hear about it tonight. That's the other thing that's possible because I didn't get any rejections on that one. Like one of my things that I do is I talk to somebody and I say, "Is this possible?" And a lot of times people know I have deals with certain people I talk to, and if they don't respond to me at all, that means I'm kind of onto something. They will quickly respond and say, "No, we're not doing that." I got a no response for Bowen Byron with the Flyers, so that's take it for what you want. I don't know. He's had a few concussions. Yeah, he has. Yeah. Everyone knows they always want Hagens. Who's the most likely to trade pick? 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7? It won't be 6. I think 3. I think the most likely that is that the Hawks would move for the 14th, 15th, and 16th picks that the Islanders could technically have at that point. I wouldn't do it if I was the Hawks. I mean, there's a difference between the guy second overall and the guy or third overall, and the guy who's 14th, 15th, or 16th. It's just, we know those top 7 players, I think, are really good. That's the reality of it, right? Okay, let's see. I need new glasses so badly. Best guess. LA offers Byfield, Kempe, Turcotte, Spence, 4 first. That's a little much, but for McDavid, Zach Hyman, Zach Diamond, and Arvidsson. Arvidsson, I think, is going to end up back in Nashville, but we'll find out about that. It's not a bad guess, Andrew. Like, it's not, they're not that far off. Yeah, it was Andrew who made that. No, it was, I'm sorry, it was Dennis who made that. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. My eyes are so tired from not sleeping that I can't really read the screen. If I go closer, I take my glasses off, so it's like I'm in this sweet spot right here. Anyway, yes, it's bad when everybody knows who you want to pick. It's bad that everybody knows that Hagens, who's from Long Island, is the Islanders' target. It's not good. It's not a good thing because it's not a good thing for the Islanders. It's not a good thing for unless the Islanders are doing what the Flyers might be doing, which is misdirecting and saying they want Hagens, but really they want Desnoyers. It's possible. But I really do get the impression the Islanders want him. And the Islanders are going to have to do something now. It's not they've traded Dobson. They're actually going to have to do something that gives that fan base something to look forward to. And it's going to be okay to get Schaefer. Schaefer's going to be a great defenseman, but he's really just replacing Dobson, who's a great defenseman too. So, especially, man, if they move Barzal, who I think Islanders fans would be okay moving because he's been hurt so much, but that just put the pressure on Hagens. That Hagens replaces Barzal. Let's see what's here. Yeah, McFarland's good at the Abs. Good in Colorado. What percent of Barzal being traded? Well, I'm assuming they'll trade all of him and not just keep part of his legs or something. But no, just kidding. I understand what you're saying, Randy. Just a little tired and a little loopy. That's impossible to say. I can only really when I come up with percentages for the rumor chart. I don't ever do it just based on one person. So there's like a rumor out there. I didn't even get the rumor personally. It was a rumor just on Twitter, but it gained steam. And apparently at least one of the big people have written about it. Probably Frank Cervelli or something like that. But yeah, I think that at the end of the day, I can't put a percentage on it because I don't even know if it's real. It could just be part of this game that I was talking about. Thanks, Zach, for letting everybody know. Zach's our great Columbus Blue Jackets and Ottawa Senators writer. He's in there right now. Any chance? Any chance? Yeah, Jonathan asks, is any chance that the Pens move Rust and or Raquel to move up? Yeah, it's possible because they actually are. Kevin said this the other day, I think, on the show, and I've heard it today too from other people. But there's not a lot of teams who are in selling mode right now. Like not a lot of teams. There's a lot of teams who are either in the mode like Seattle and Utah aren't in selling mode because they got to be good soon. Like they can't just put a bad team on the ice again. But the Penguins seem to be the only team that's in selling mode. So yeah, they might trade those guys for draft picks. I mean, are they trying to tank to get McKenna eventually? I mean, tanking is a tough word to use, right? But the Penguins have tanked successfully a couple times. I mean, whether, like my friend used to have a really funny comment that, when they got Malkin, Fleury, and Crosby in like the 3 first picks, right? Someone asked him one time, he was covering a game with me, and someone asked him how the Penguins get good. And he said, yeah, the Penguins got good by just fielding an AHL team for like a half a decade, which is really what they did. They, so are they willing to do that with Crosby and Malkin and like Letang still there? Like that's, if you're gonna tank, you get rid of those 3 guys because they're gonna make it good enough to not tank. And also they're not gonna allow you to just put in random players who are gonna play hard but not win your game. So it's confusing. Anything on Tampa? Marchessault, I wrote yesterday. Louis, I wrote about Marchessault. Depends who you believe on this one, right? But I was pretty convinced the sources were telling me that Marchessault wanted to be traded. And yesterday, I heard Barry Trotz interviewed, and White Trotz, who was like a good friend. He's a good guy. He was interviewed. He doesn't usually say things. He doesn't usually play the media or anything like that. And he said, "Yeah, I heard that rumor too." And I called up Marchessault to see if I'd missed something. And no, we're okay. He's still okay with us. That could be anything. Like it could be true. Could be exactly true, like it is, which is what I would put at 80%. I mean, the only other 20% I say is we're good out there. They want to be traded, and the returns were really bad. So the Redders pulled it back, and now want it to be known that he doesn't want to be traded. So if someone really wants him, like Tampa did really want him, that would be an issue. Let's see. Hope that answers your question. Next time before I do this, I'm going to get new glasses. I'm really sorry. Any chance Alexis Lafreniere is still moved? Yes, that's not done. I thought the 4th overall pick was a great deal for both teams. Like I think he would be amazing in Utah. He would get to be the kind of player he probably should be. And the Rangers aren't like, there's a sum of what Alexis Lafreniere is, and I feel like the Rangers are only getting like 60% of it. Like for some reason, because of the way they play him, the positions, the second power play, and things like that, it's like they aren't getting. Lafreniere will thrive someplace. He's good offensively. He's good defensively too. He's like could win to Selke someday. Apparently, I never quite understand how people determine those Selke things. Like out of the blue, oh yeah, he's a Selke nominee. Yeah, I mean I've watched him play too, but I don't know that he's that. Like he's not like magnificently defensively. Like but no one is. Like people are just good defensively. Just Gary Crosby to Avs to play with. Yeah, that's what I want to have happen too. The NHL would be happy with that as well. Like, putting McKinnon and Crosby together in some place. And geez, after you saw like what they just did in the World Championships, where they didn't play together actually, which is pretty funny. Crosby demanded to play with Macron and Celebrity, which just shows you why Crosby is such a freaking awesome person. Macklin Celebrini plays like him, plays more like Crosby than anybody in the league that I've seen since Crosby came in. I always called Crosby the greatest cycler, the greatest like what the expression I forget, but like the greatest cycling superstar we've ever seen. Like he's able to go down low. He doesn't have to score goals on beautiful plays. He can make beautiful plays, but he also will cycle the puck, go to the net. And Nathan has a little bit. McKinnon has a little bit of it too. McKinnon actually has even more of a mean streak, but he's not like a cycling guy as much as Crosby will bring the puck off the boards. Usually, the superstars have other guys to go to the boards to get the puck, and they're waiting for that, right? Backlund Celebrity, in my opinion, is so much better than Connor Bedard, and so much better than anybody who's been drafted in this league since McKinnon. I really think that's the case because I think that he is. Macklin Celebrini is a superstar, like flat out superstar, and you saw it when he played with Crosby, and that's why Crosby wanted to play with him, because Crosby and Macklin Celebrini play almost the same game, which is really fascinating because there's not like another Crosby, but now there might be. You want to see the Crosby in the playoffs again? Yeah, absolutely. The NHL needs it in the playoffs, right? I'm going through this. Do the Bruins pick at 7 or move the pick? Dennis asks. And I'll get to you, Douglas, and you, Andrew. No, I think they're going to get O'Brien at 7. That's what I'm hearing about. And he's Irish, so why wouldn't Boston take him? Right? Perfect. No, but you wouldn't want to move the 7th pick because the 7th pick is going to be strong, and the Bruins really do need to admit that they have to sort of rebuild a little bit. Like, I mean, trading that pick would be a retooling direction. And the Bruins are one of those teams that I admire teams that don't admit to rebuilding. Like I really do, because I think rebuilding is ridiculous. I think everybody should just be retooling. That's the way it works. The Flyers just really retool. The Canadians just really retool. These teams don't rebuild. You can't say you're rebuilding in Detroit. There's certain things you can't say, and I like when a city can't say that. I guess that makes sense. Are the Sabres moving up to 3? A couple people have asked this question. So Douglas, I'll answer that question. I don't know. They are being sneaky, and they're definitely talking to a lot of people about a lot of things. If I was a pitcher and looking at him at first base, I would say they're runnerish. Like if that guy's going to try to steal. I would feel like that with the Sabres right now, but I haven't heard anything specifically, and I don't think they should give up any good young players to get to number 3. I think the Sabres fans will say that we've had enough of waiting for people to get better that we drafted high. I think the Sabres need to make some real player trades, in my opinion. All right. Modified final trade from Zach McMillan. Thank you, Zach. Coyle and Wood to Columbus. Yep. Because you always need Coyle and Wood together. I've never had one without the other. For 27's second round, Columbus, Minnesota on Minnesota or lowest. Oh, I love these kind of things. For the 27 second round, Columbus or Minnesota or lowest, 25. 70s third round, 77th overall, and Brindley, best friend of Fantilli. So they're bringing in Fantilli's friend. All right, that's kind of cool. Fantilli lace and a city face, and all I know. Yeah, I like Fantilli. I wanted the Flyers to draft him. I really bad. I didn't. I think he's going to be a star. I do. I may have to get going pretty soon, guys. Sorry about that. Any more questions? Do we like this? Do we like this concept of me just doing some of the podcast by myself and telling stories? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of stories to tell today. That's why I wanted to come on here. I just couldn't see myself trying to type all this in. Meltzer just tweeted. Obviously, Meltzer too. Yeah, the Ziegler is at the draft party. Yeah, I knew he was going to be there at the draft party. I look forward to seeing Bill as well. This is the thing about these draft parties. They're feel good things, So what I'm going to focus my story on is I'm going to talk to Flyers fans and say, what makes you feel good about the Flyers right now? Like, are you excited about where they're going? And this is where most people who are there are going to say they are, because most people on the internet like to be negative, and that's where they usually go negative wise, right? But yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting Seekers tonight. I've interviewed him once a long time ago. He came off to me like not the greatest, but when I saw his interview the other day when he did the press thing for us, He looked a lot more mature, so I think he's gotten there. Yeah. Yes, Bill Meltzer, former Hockey Buzz alumni. Andrew Piscopo. Sorry. Are the Rangers and the fourth still a possibility? Yes, they are. I don't know that it's gonna. Like I said, I don't know anything's gonna happen. I'm not the one who makes the trades, but I know that what I really am best at is people will tell me when they're not doing something. I could squash it if I wanted to, if I knew, but I've given people the opportunity to tell me that it's not possible, and so far, no one said it's not possible. There ain't no party like a Zegers party because Zegers party is off the hook. I feel the Buzzcast feels refreshing. Good, thanks. Shalish and Rabbits are great additions. I know. I'm telling you, like I'm going to the draft. Rabbits is going with me to the draft party tonight. He's a great kid. He's really smart. He's really on top of things. He's going to be covering Penn State in the press box next year at Penn State with what we're guessing is going to be an all-star lineup where they're going to get Gavin McKenna at Penn State, which is going to be crazy. So yeah, I thought it needed refreshing. Like nothing against Mike, who was always fun and curmudgeon, and Russ. I love them all, but I just think that we needed to. We've been going a long time. We did 1,000 shows together, those guys. So yeah, it was good. They needed to move on, and we need to move on, and it's all fine. I'm still friends with everybody. It's not a big deal. This is not like people are like, oh, Mike and Bill left you at the same time in anger. They didn't leave in anger. They it was time for both of them to go. Bill works for the Flyers, PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, and they, sometimes they won't let you work other places. That happens. All right. I think that's it. I think I've answered everything I can. I think I got to get a shower because I stink. Let's see. All right. So here's something interesting coming in. Let me reread this, you guys, and see if I can check it out. This is from Portsline, who I definitely trust a lot. Aaron's great. He says the Islanders wanted both. You might have seen this because it was on Reddit for a while. This is the first time I've seen it. The Islanders wanted both Columbus's first-round picks, number 14 and number 20, tonight, and a roster player, which was Dmitry Voronkov, was reported by the fourth period. Dave knows what he's talking about over there. And another piece, a prospect, a later pick, exchange for Noah Dobson. So this is the Columbus. He came down to Columbus and Montreal for Dobson. St. Louis was in it before that, and San Jose was even in it. So that's what you got. Cynical Mike. Mike's great. You can still see this podcast for hockey news. They love him over there. They think that they just love that thing. What he brings, and he's 100% of Mike Agello is exactly what you say. Like he's great, and he's not putting on airs to be angry on the show. Like that is him. You are getting, which I always like people who are. I don't like people who are fake. I like people who are real, even if I don't agree with them. I'd rather you be real. So Mike's real for sure, right? And then I used to get on him sometimes for it because I'm like, you got to do this, but I didn't want him to be like so cynical, especially when every time we mentioned Montreal or Buffalo was mentioned, he doesn't like those teams. So, I didn't want him to look too much like a fan. But the Hockey News loves it. From what we've been told, the Hockey News thinks that that's great. They like everything he's doing. So I'm really happy for him because I really want him to be successful, and he worked with me for a long time. So I'm really happy for Mike, and I hope he sees this and hopes he hears that because does Mike still think the Oilers aren't missing the playoffs? Yeah, I don't know. I haven't talked to him for a while about the Oilers. We had a fun rivalry where he always thought the Oilers stunk, and I used to joke around with him. I'm like, it's just because you can draw a line to Toronto, and he's like, how can you draw a line? Well, Toronto wanted McDavid, and they didn't get him in the lottery, so anything the Oilers do will always be terrible. That was my thought. I'm sorry, Gary. Good afternoon to you too, but I gotta leave. I gotta go. I gotta go. I'm glad you guys like this. In the comments on YouTube, please tell me what you think. I'm thinking of doing more of this in the future because it's easier for me to talk real on here than it is for me to write sometimes. And I'm just coming over off this concussion, which I had, which has really made writing harder, and that's why I'm not seeing well either. So Okay. All right. We're going to go. Remember, guys, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Enjoy the drafts tonight. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a lot to talk about. I hope you guys, wherever you are just enjoying it, because it's not hockey, but it's pretty cool.